we are going to be using color sticks for this project. I'm starting with my moon. I'm pressing very firmly and making sure to go around the shape. I'm not coloring on top of the dried glue lines. We are coloring inside the lines or outside the lines, not on top. I'm going over and over again so my moon looks nice and bright, like it's glowing in the night sky. I'm going to take my white just for a minute and make a little mark to see where the shine is going to hit my pumpkin. And I'm not going to color it yet. This is just to show me later. This is where the lightest part of my pumpkin's going to be. If you look at the color sticks I've picked out, they are all values of orange, starting with a kind of a red, pink orange to a regular orange to a little bit of a lighter orange to a lighter yellow orange to a yellow. And obviously the darker ones are going to go the farthest away from the light. And as I color up the pumpkin towards the white line, they're going to get lighter and lighter. Before I do that, I'm taking my medium orange, the one that's in the middle, and I'm shading very lightly. Don't color hard, because if you color hard first, nothing will blend on top. And the whole thing we're doing with these pumpkins and the picture is blending our color sticks. I'm putting some orange down first because I'm making like a base color. And my base color for this pumpkin is going to be orange. So I'm just choosing a medium shade to use. I didn't push hard. You can see there's even some black lines and spaces underneath. That's okay. Just get like a light coat down. Next, I'm going to switch to the darkest value of orange and start at the very bottom of my pumpkin. I'm shading firmly now, pressing harder, and I'm also going to get the ridges in between each of my little lines. Remember, you're not coloring on top of the glue. You're leaving the glue line and you're using it like a guideline. I'm guiding the darker orange value on either side of the ridge, just a little bit, and then I'm spreading out at the bottom so it looks like there's a darker shadow. You can also see at the top I pressed a little bit harder too, so it looks like there's a shadow around my little pumpkin stem. As I color to the back side of my pumpkin, I'm going to make the darker shade go a little bit higher, because it's not the side where my moon is. Switching now to a shade of orange, I'm blending a little bit on top of the last value color, and then bringing the color up higher. I'm pressing very firmly at this point because I want it to mix together. The next two oranges are almost exactly the same color, so if you can't really tell which orange is slightly darker than the other orange, you could flip your paper over and test them both. And if you still can't tell because they are very close in color, just use one of them. You don't really need both of the oranges because they're practically the same. I'm blending up at the top as well, going over right where my little stem shadow is. I'm not coloring too close to that white line I made because that is my little indicator where the brightest part of my pumpkin is going to be. So I don't want to put a darker orange on that line. Before I switch over to the slightly lighter color orange, I'm blending with the medium orange again above where I shaded before, but you'll see I'm pressing lighter, kind of priming the surface for the next color, which again is kind of the same orange. It looks slightly lighter, and I'm not going up too much higher than I already have because it's still orange. and I'm getting very close to that little bright shine line. And I want to save that for my yellow, orange, my yellow, and a tiny bit of my white. Switching over to the yellow, orange, I'm going up again above the last line that I used, but I'm going below as well so I can get a nice blended color. Above the white line as well. Very close, I'm practically touching the line at this point. Fast forward to the next color. I have my yellow now, and I'm coloring on top of the white line that I made. I'm pressing pretty firmly, but I do want to leave a tiny little bit of, let's call it paper space, left. I'm not pressing as hard as I could, because right on top of that yellow, I want to blend a tiny bit of white. I'm going back, it looks like, with my orange because it doesn't look very smooth where the yellow meets the orange. So I'm going back with my darker color and blending on top of the yellow a little bit to give it a smoother transition. And that's something that you'll probably need to do at some point to make it look like your pumpkin doesn't have stripes. You want it to look like a pumpkin that's different values. Right now I'm taking my white right on top of where that shine was, pressing very, very hard. The yellow and the white are blending together to create what looks like the shine on top of our pumpkin. As I do my second pumpkin, let's review. A light coat of medium orange first, then a darker value along the bottom, top, and just to the sides of the ridges, blending with orange into lighter orange, yellow, and then finally white. As I go into my third pumpkin, I hope you realize this takes a really long time to do. Take your time if you want your pumpkins to look really nice. Blend slowly, one color to the next color, layer a little on top of your last color so it doesn't just look like stripes on your pumpkin. You want it to look like a solid pumpkin that is just changing values as the light hits it. There's only so many oranges in our box, so if you're waiting for a color, try coloring the stems of your pumpkin while you're waiting. I'm using a green and a darker kind of brown green and a tan. I'm going to use just a mixture of them along the inside of the stem. The light tan is my lightest color, so I'm coloring almost like a stripe, just an edge of just that color, and I'm doing it on the side that my moon is facing. So on the two pumpkins on my right, they're on the left side because the moon is on the left side of the pumpkin. Switching over to my green, I'm going to do the same thing I did with my pumpkin and blend on top of the tan a little bit before moving over and filling in a space of its own. I'm using a darker brown for my shadow, but you could easily use a darker green as well. The choice is really up to you what blend of green and brown you put on your stems. These were just the three that I chose. When I do the last stem, my colors are reversed and the light side is on the right because that is where my moon is. When doing the night sky, we want the moon to look like it's glowing. So I'm starting right against the moon on the other side of the glue line and making a ring of white. Remember, don't color on top of the glue. I'm blending outwards a little bit at a time, creating curved lines. Don't color straight or your moon is not going to look like it's glowing. As I go farther and farther away from my moon, you'll notice that I'm coloring lighter and lighter. and I'm actually leaving lines of black paper, giving it space in between. I've decided to blend blues in with my night sky. I'm starting with a very light blue and blending farther out from my moon. First, I went on top of my white before I went straight on with just the light blue when I go farther out. You don't have to use blue. Some people like doing a blue and a purple. Test it on the back and see what blend of colors you want to be in your night sky. As I get further away, I will once again color lighter and lighter, leaving gaps in between my blue lines. I'm switching over to dark blue now and picking up where I left off, adding more lines in the darker blue, blending on top of the lighter blue before I keep moving away from the moon and getting lighter and lighter with my color. This should be a gradual change in color. It shouldn't be very sudden. Shouldn't look like a stripe. You want it to look like it's all together. It's one thing. I've grabbed my white and I'm adding a couple of little stars. I don't want to make the dots too big or it's going to look like snow. So keep the dots small. And I know some of you were asking if you could draw some other things in your night sky. This is the time to do it. I have picked many shades of green and a white for my ground. I need to find spots where I want it to be lighter and spots I want it to be darker. Since there's a big gap right in the middle of these 3 pumpkins, I'm going to add a lighter patch of my grass right there. So it will look like the moonlight is hitting that spot. I'm doing a diagonal line when I'm coloring, so it will give the illusion of a grass texture. This way you don't have to draw individual lines, but it will also not look like scribble if you keep going that direction. I've chosen my dark green to put directly under all 3 of my pumpkins. I'm coloring darker down there so it will look like the pumpkin is casting a shadow. The same method of blending applies to this as well. So I'm going to eventually blend my way over to the other greens that I'm going to make and gradually build layers on top to create something that looks like it's slowly changing color instead of just chunks of different color sitting next to each other.